Hello, and welcome to the Memory Capsule podcast, where we interview members of the Pokemon trading card game community. My name is Rafal Gladys. Each week, we'll be speaking with our guest about their background with the Pokemon TCG, how they got involved with the game, and give them an opportunity to share their love of the game. Today's guest is Greg Smith. Greg is a judge, Pokedad, and player. Greg got involved with the Pokemon TCG more than a decade ago and was the only player at Locals yesterday with a shorter pop ID than me. Greg has judged regionals, organized cups, and helped introduce new players to the game throughout the Midwest. He is the father of multiple competitive players and has personally seen competitive success at events when he is not judging. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Nice to be recording on a Friday, be done with work for the week.
Yes, yes.
For anyone who has maybe seen you around tournaments as a judge but has not really had a chance to meet you, what would you like our listeners to know about you?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that if you ever see me, I'm very approachable for asking questions or anything of that nature. But other than that, um, I love the game and I really enjoy judging. Is pretty much my biggest thing. I really enjoy doing that, the judging aspect and mentoring people and learning new things, new rulings, and um, that's pretty much it.
Before we dive into some of your background with the game, I'll just start with a simple question, which is what is your favorite card of all time?
Favorite card? That's a tough one. There were, I always liked Seismitoad, except when I played against it. Um, I love some of the arts of Darkrai, and that's probably Darkrai is one of my not only one of my favorite Pokemon, but I always like the Darkrai where you can just do the 90 damage and then snipe the bench. As a playable card and as the art of it as well, the full art Dark Explorers is
Yes.
absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love that card. Another beautiful card I have is a Kabalion card back from I think it's from Black and White, full art. It's just another. The art is just beautiful.
You're kind of talking about these early black and white era cards, which can then kind of bring us into the first question of when did you get involved with the game? Because I believe it was about around that time. Am I right?
Right, exactly. I got involved right around when Dark Explorers came out. Uh, my son Evan had always been watching the cartoon, and we just started buying cards for like 2 or 3 years, and then pretty soon I said, "Hey, let's just stop buying cards and figure out how to play this game." So we were actually in Ohio, went to a McDonald's, and they had a sign there for a league on a Monday night, and so we went in there, and these wonderful people, Newells, taught us. I was patient, taught us how to play. I was hooked, and I kind of they said there was a pre-release coming up this weekend, a Dark Explorers. I said, "What's a pre-release?" And so I sent Evan to a Pizza Hut have a pre-release, and it was that's how we started getting into it. I'm kind of competitive in anything I do, right? So I started to be able to look at some of the better cards and help Evan build some of the better decks, and it ended up that he really enjoyed it, and he started to get pretty good at it himself.
So, did you have any experience with anything regarding the Pokemon franchise before you got into the card game? And on a related note, did you have any experience with any sort of card game or competitive game before Pokemon, or was that kind of your first foray into all of that?
Actually, I'm a competitive bridge player, believe it or not.
Hmm.
I'm actually going to tournaments similar to Pokemon, sectionals, regionals. I've been earning points to become a life master. Um, in the past 2 years, since COVID, I've been really diving down into it. So I've been playing bridge for about 40 years now. So that's really been my game for a while, and then Pokemon kind of overtook that and put Bridge on the back burner. And then when COVID hit and Pokemon kind of went away, I started playing competitive Bridge.
That's really interesting. I had no idea. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I have a tournament Sunday, an all day tournament Sunday.
Wow. All right. Well, best of luck.
Thank you.
Now, most people do know you as a judge and as an organizer. When did you start getting interested in judging Pokemon events as well as just playing in them?
So after we started here, started at that McDonald's. It was actually in Ohio. Came back here. There was a game store here, Everything Games. That was just 2 miles down the road from me. And there was another local person, Rebecca, that had also had a son that was interested, like Evan, and she wanted to start a league. And so I kind of helped her start the league. She was really the main person, and we did everything. Did a little league over at Everything Games, and this probably was in 2014. And then we kind of built it from there, moved from the Everything Games to actually a library. And we had a really good thriving league, probably 25, 30 people every Saturday. And so that's when they started to have challenges. And so they kind of needed a judge in order to have the challenge, to do the judging. And I was playing a lot as well. And one of the things I distinctly remember, and I probably maybe shouldn't say this, but it's okay. I was at a state. I won't name the states because I might name the judge. That was I was a head judge, and I was playing against this person who was playing Seismitoad, and I was playing. Excuse me, I was playing Seismitoad, and I did my Quaking Punch, and she continued to play, and then did a real quick shortcut, VS Seeker N,
Mm.
and play the VS Seeker, didn't pick up the N and play it. And then within 3 seconds, I said, hold on a sec, you can't do it. Well, meanwhile, she already shuffled her hand, which is breaking game state, right? I got a game loss. And I didn't think I should get a game loss because I didn't break the game state. They did. And the professor at the time says, well, it doesn't matter. You're the person who has the Seismitoad. You should be responsible. I says, that doesn't make any sense. Says, I should try to become a judge so I can better understand this stuff, and so I can maybe have some influence. So that was probably the one thing that pushed me over to becoming a judge. I had a ruling that I disagreed with. I said, so if I disagree with it, I want to be able to make a positive change into the community.
I see.
And I was right, by the way.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it would be your fault.
No, but the thought behind that at that time was, and there's still some thought of it now, which I'm trying to get some of the professors to understand, is, yeah, I have a responsibility, but I'm not the one that's breaking game states. And so there's a lot of people who, maybe the opponent forgot to take prize cards, and now the game state is broken. And sometimes the judge will do a double game loss because they're saying, well, you should have caught them. Now it's broken, and you should have caught it, and so we're going to give you a game loss. And I argue there's nothing in the rule book that says that. But the purpose of it is because they wanted it to be a deterrent. Well, make sure next time you watch them get a prize card, because if you don't, you could get a game loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that there's a deterrent, but it's not in the rule book. It's not in the rule book that it's supposed to be a warning and not escalated to a game loss right away.
I see. Interesting. So that does kind of then lead me into a question, which is, what is your philosophy as a judge like? How much flexibility is given to you as a judge, and what is your philosophy with your decision making?
There is some flexibility within that. It's difficult to really say exactly what flexibility there is. I really try to go by the rule book. I really try to follow that. At the same time, I look at what advantage did they get? Did they get an advantage? Is there an opportunity that they, could have gotten cheated somehow? You kind of take all that into an effect. And then also the other one is how old are they? How long have they been playing? So when I was the head judge of juniors and seniors, I judge that differently than when I'm over on the master's side. So a good example I remember was that there was a kid. It was near the bottom tables as a senior. It was his first time ever being at a regional, and he just kept on forgetting to put out prize cards time and time and time again. And he was playing, a fire deck where you accelerated the energy and your end, turn end, and I think he technically had two searches, and it should have been like a double prize penalty or something like that. And I de-escalated to say, okay, you need to make sure because you can tell he's in the middle, fourth or fifth round, bottom tables. I was going to give the kid a break that he's not really gaining any big advantage at that point. So my point is, my philosophy is really try to be as fair as possible. Really try to follow the rules as they are written, and don't read anything into what we think the rules are meant to be. Really, what the rules really do say.
Mm-hmm. Is there any judge who's been around before you that you try to emulate in terms of how you approach the game?
My go-to judge, and we always seem to be see eye to eye because I really love his input, is Ease Roundtree. He is I've been around forever, I think, 20 plus years. He's down from in Mexico, so he's always at OIC, not only Latin America. He's a head judge there in the junior seniors. He actually is a head judge a lot of times in the juniors and seniors, but he's also been head judge. It seems like he has a good head, shoulders on his head. He knows the rule books. He knows that not everything is always in black and white. And he takes really the spirit of the game into consideration. And so that's exactly how I like to think of things. And so I think he's the best judge in the business.
Do you see the task of a judge and the role of a judge having evolved over time?
One of the things that I wish we could have done earlier was that there was really no training ground for judges. It was you go to cups, you go to a league, and that's it. And then you go to a regional and you get thrown all that type of stuff. Pokemon's done a really great job of putting in a Pokemon professor. I guess it's called Pokemon University, and where you can watch videos, you can get a better understanding of stuff. And they have a lot more seminars now. Before, you would have a seminar maybe once a year, if that. And now you're almost having a professor seminar at almost every regional, at least half the regionals that are out there. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen out there that's really helping develop professors where, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there just wasn't anything there.
That's interesting. One thing that I saw at the last regionals I was at was the judges were, when I was playing in the GLC side event, the judges were saying that that's also kind of a really helpful tool for them to learn how to judge different things because it's more low stakes, but you see a lot of high grade interactions. What happens if your Wishy-Washy gets attacked with Hex Maniac in play? Does it go back in the deck, or does Hex Maniac stay in play? Does the ability even work? And I had like 3 judges around me trying to figure it out because that interaction almost never happens. But they were even telling me personally that this is an opportunity for them to learn a little bit about how these interactions work outside of having to only see it on the big stage.
There's different aspects of judging. It's knowing all those hard skills and figuring out how those interact, and then there's the soft skills. And so if you need to be able to really differentiate the two. Someone asked me the other day, and I can't remember, one of the judges texted me and asked me about interaction about it was the switch cards, and he had to remove it back and take 3 damage counters off. But there's also a stadium in play that if it goes back to the bench, you had to place 2 damage counters on it. Or maybe it was an ability. I can't remember which one it was. And want to know what comes first. Because if you put the 2 down on there, then it knocks it out, and you can't take the 3 off the switch cards. Or do you do the switch card first and everything? So those are really great opportunities just to sit back and say, okay, what are the basic aspects of the Pokemon rules and how do you apply those? And there's actually a set out there that it's out there now on the Discord. Will post has a Discord that thousands of professors, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of professors across the world have. And we're able to communicate, we're able to really help each other much better and put out rulings exactly what the process is in order to find out what's knocked out. And so if we just able to step back and say, all those hard rulings, how do they go and everything, then all it usually just sets back to a common way of ruling. It's you don't have to know every single aspect. You just have to look at the normal ruling, right? If I'm making any sense, it's like,
Yeah,
well,
that makes
except
sense.
for knockouts, you have to complete all the actions. So don't don't go back, put the 2 on it, and then check for knockouts. You check for knockouts, the very last thing.
Yeah, so just because every card might have a slightly different effect that it does, there's still the same order. The order of operations never changes. So knowing that can
Right.
make things a lot easier.
And people forget about that order of operation. That little bit of the aspect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you think that having something like that Discord as a resource has helped judging improve? Because I'm assuming in the past it was mostly the professor forums and the Pokegym forums as kind of the main resources for rulings.
Yeah, that was. I think it has. I mean, I've had some good experiences, some bad experiences in that. I mean, I used to, if I had a ruling I was really concerned about, I could get on Discord, and within a minute, I can get 5 different opinions from 5 different professors from across the world, and that's really helped. The problem is, I might get 5 different opinions. 3 of them are completely wrong, and they'll argue with me. And I had that happen several years ago, where uh, Evan had a ruling which was I felt was wrong, and then the following week I had a teammate at a cup had the same instance, and half the community said this is the ruling, the other half was that's the ruling, and no one knew what it was, and it was really divided. And so actually what happened was one ruling was given, and then he opened a ticket and asked Pokemon what's the ruling, and the Pokemon says, here is the ruling, ruled it wrong, go apologize to this person.
Yeah, I guess my next question was like, if there is a division like that over a ruling that's really complicated, is there a final authority? Is it just like we're gonna slap it on the compendium on Pokegym like this? You can't argue with this anymore. Is that kind of the final say there?
Kind of. If it gets to a point, then clarification. You can go to ask the compendium folks, and they can get some clarification, or just open a ticket. A player, and I don't think, and I wish we as players would do that actually more. If they think something's wrong, or they don't like something, open a ticket. Say, hey, this is a ruling. Is this actually the ruling that should have occurred? And it's not always just because it's divided. There's some rules out there that a lot of judges think it's ruled this way. I think it's ruled a different way, and there's been no completely authoritative way of doing it. So, and I'll bring it up. It's drawing that extra card is probably the biggest thorn in my side right now. A lot of people give it a double prize penalty for drawing the extra card.
Oh, like just drawing, if you draw for turn or like a Marnie, you just draw an extra one.
Right. And it's really the definition of what's drawing. Is drawing coming to your hand, or is drawing seeing it, or inadvertently seeing it? And what's the difference? And a lot of judges say, well, if you inadvertently see it, that's the same as drawing, and you get a double prize penalty. And others will say, well, that was inadvertent. You really never got anything, never gained any advantage. I'm just going to give them a warning. And that's probably one of the bigger issues out there, I think, in the Pokemon community right now. Of some judges think it should be this way, other judges think it should be another way.
Mm-hmm. I see. And that did that did occur at OCIC with one of twice in Azul's stream game, where I think because of where the prizes were positioned, his opponent drew his top deck instead of a prize. And the first one was a 2 prize penalty. The second was he just scooped because he assumed it was going to be a game loss. I know there's some contention over the harshness of certain penalties. What are some of the most difficult rulings that you've ever had to do? What are some rulings that have really maybe kind of stumped you as a judge and made you have to really think about what the right decision is?
Yeah, there's, I think there are two aspects of it. One aspect is not necessarily a ruling, but trying to unwind some transactions, some games. And so, he played Professor Sycamore. He already had played something. So how many cards? What was here? What was played? And trying to actually try to rewind a game so you get it back to the correct state, or you get it back to the best state as you can. Because if you can't get it back to the game state back to where it is, it's going to be partially broken. Someone's going to get a double prize penalty, or if it's completely broken because you can't rewind it, then it's going to be a game loss. So one of the most difficult things to do is rewinding a game, or rewinding a hand and play. It's just really difficult. And not only is it difficult, but when you're doing it at a regional, you have to do it quickly. You can't spend 10 minutes trying to rewind something, because then all of a sudden you're going to be 10 minutes behind, and you have a hall full of 1,400 people waiting on one person. So not only do you have to rewind it early, you have to be able to rewind it fast. So that's probably one of the most difficult things that are out there. The other things is the subjective things. We had to disqualify people for various reasons. The one time someone came up and says, this person pressured me to scoop. He asked me to flip. He said he wanted, he really needed his invite, things like that. And then it's like, well, you go ask the person and say, oh, I didn't do that. And so now it's a he said situation. So now you have to try to interview people around. You have to try to do all that type of stuff. And certainly if someone's being pressured to scoop, someone's saying, I'm going to flip the coin. I know it's not allowed. I'm asking you to scoop to me and pressure you. We're going to disqualify that person. So things that are like that are subjective. I remember a ruling I had to do in Milwaukee, and it was a similar one in Texas back in 2018. They got all the way to round 7 or 8. I think it was the same thing over, and maybe it was day 2 for the other guy in Texas, but it was the same thing up in Milwaukee. Found out that their deck list did not match the deck. It was, they had a 3 of this and a 2 of that, and it should have been a 2 of this and a 3 of that. And everybody in the industry who plays know it's supposed to be a 3 of this and a 2 of that. And he just had it backwards. And so did he gain the advantage? Well, it was wrong. So what do you do? Well, one of the things is, well, he got to play with it all day. He's now at the top tables, which he was like, table 5 or 6, disqualify the guy. So is that something that, that's very subjective, because now you have to decide, is that something that's to get away with? Same thing up in Milwaukee, really tough. Someone had 5 bosses in their deck. So, and they were at, around 8, probably going to make day 2. And it's like, do you get advantage for playing 5 bosses? And so, yeah, you may or you may not. Has he been playing with it all day? Or did he sideboard it and put a 5th boss in because he needed to get something out? And so those are all subjective to be able to do. It's just like, here's the guy that's doing fantastic. He's going to make day 2. He's really happy. Now he just ruined his day.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely tough, especially when it's like you were saying. It's the ruling. One of the only options is to just disqualify the person, right?
Yeah.
There's not really if someone's playing an extra card of an extra boss, you can't just say, you'll get a 2 prize penalty, right? Like you got, yeah, you gotta either kick him out or keep him in, and just not really a middle ground.
Deck checks is another thing. I hate doing some of the penalties for deck checks. I still have to follow the rules, but I just feel bad that, hey, this card is marked. It's a 1 of. It's their 8 spec. It is so warped. It's a marked card. And it's tough because I'm sure the person didn't mean to do something, but you still have to penalize them. Sometimes following the rules can be somewhat difficult itself. And I think that's probably one of the challenges that judges have, is they follow the rules on what they think it should be, and it's not necessarily correct.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example. So there was a ruling one time with someone that what was it? Made it to top cut, had the deck checked, and found a marked card. Right. So that's a game loss. Switch it in game loss, no questions. The problem was, and this was at a cup, the problem was his opponent had to go home sick. So now that opponent wasn't going to be played. So when do you actually it was a game loss, right? So when are you going to penalize the person? He's not playing the first round where he's going to be getting the game loss. So do you wait and punish the guy in the next round and give him a game loss there? Or is he going to be able to get away with having a marked card? Right? I mean,
yeah.
That's the question. I got a marked card, I get a game loss, but guess what? My opponent didn't show up, so I'm not penalized.
Mm-hmm.
And those are, somewhat difficult in the industry to be able to get exactly what it is, unless you get the absolutely authority at the time to say it's someone at Pokemon from TPCI to say this is the rules, and that's not available all the time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you, along with all the judging you've done, you have mentioned that you are also a player. You have made it, as far as the limitless pages go, at least have made one day 2 at Colorado, with a stall deck.
Yes.
How has your experience as a player been, and how has that affected your judging experience?
It's I try to play at least 1 or 2 regionals a year, because I think that makes me a better judge. I can sit down and find out how things impact me, how I would feel if something's occurring, how I think it's fair, and how those rules are occurring. For example, I played at North America Internationals last year. The guy that came across from me was late. So I sat down and started playing, and the guy had a question about, I don't know what's going to happen. There was some confusion about it. We stopped for a few minutes, and then we got time extended. Judges generally give them a little bit extra time because, yeah, the ruling took 2 minutes, but I'm not too sure exactly if it took 2 minutes. It took 4 minutes. Well, all of a sudden, I'm like, well, now wait a second. He was late. I'm going to win if it goes to time +3. If he doesn't win, now he is going to have more time because the judge gave him more time. And the judge trying to be nice to us because he wants to make sure we finish the game. But now I realize how important it is to give the players the accurate amount of time when there's a ruling. If it's a quick ruling, takes 15 seconds, you don't need a time extension. If it takes 2 minutes, give them 2 minutes. Don't give them 3 minutes. Because now I understand how it can negatively impact one of the players.
Yeah. And I'm sure we've all had games at regionals where, if we had one more minute or play just a little bit faster, it completely changes the result.
Yeah, yeah. So just sitting there and finding out, okay, this happened to me, or I think this person is cheating. How's he cheating? I had another ruling in Denver where I drew 6 cards, but I didn't look at them. And I said I only looked at the first card, which I was going to do anyways. I was only supposed to get 4. It was a judge, I believe. So I got judged. I got looked at. I drew 7 cards because I thought I sycamore. I looked at the bottom card. I should have, and I didn't see the other cards. And the guy says, "Well, let's call the judge over." Okay. And the judge says, "Well, they got a double prize pen." I didn't see him. I didn't gain any advantage. And he asked the guy, "Did you see him if he found it out?" "Well, I don't know." Well, okay. So now I know this guy knew I didn't do it, but he knew I was going to get a double price penalty if he just says, "I don't know." So that allows me to understand how to interview the person. Well, if you don't know and he says he didn't, then obviously he didn't, and move forward. Let's be honest. And there are some players out there that are like that that try to cheat and take advantage of the situation. And I've learned, hopefully, how to be a better judge because of it.
Mm-hmm. On that note, are there any suggestions you would give to players who are trying to kind of look out for themselves and make sure that nothing suspicious happens against them in a game? What should players be looking out for in order to prevent, anything weird going on during their matches?
That's tough because if you're playing all day, you get tired around 6, around 7, around 8, and it's tough. The biggest thing is watching your opponent and seeing if they're doing anything of trying to switch cards from their deck to their hand. If they're, playing super fast, just trying to do all that stuff. Another one is that I see, and it's really tough too, is damage calculation. I've seen people change the damage calculation. It's happened to me when I play. That no, that was 140 on that. No, it's 120. No, it's 140. And now you debate. And I know it was 120. And so people, so at that point, you kind of have to remember, how did it get to 120? What were the steps in order for that to occur? Don't, when you go through your discard pile, don't change the order of it. Because if you start changing the order of it and you have to try to rewind the game, you don't know exactly what had been played, and it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to rewind. So, and that's the same thing with the opponents, that if they don't do it and they start to cheat, now you can say, "Hey, see, he played 2 supporters here," and you're able to try to catch them at that point. It's tough to catch cheaters if you suspect someone's cheating. All you have to do is look for certain signs. Are they shuffling properly? Cut their deck, cut them differently. Don't cut it one time, cut it another time. Shuffle the deck. Shuffling a deck is probably one of the best things, is that if you think they're stacking or something, Watch if their bottom card is moving. All those, and those are what judges. This is what I do as a judge. Uh, Same thing. If you're just have to try to be as, and if you don't think they are, I mean, they're playing pretty good. You know, you're watching all that type of stuff. You're probably pretty safe, but there are a few people out there that just they do suspicious things. So you have to just watch them a little bit more carefully.
Hmm. That's very helpful. To kind of go on top of that, there's a lot of newer players in the game right now who
Yeah,
might not have ever gone to a tournament before, might be attending their first few events.
yeah.
Maybe they're paired against a bigger name player. How can someone kind of get that confidence? Because I know some people are a little bit nervous about calling a judge and think that, just because I want to call the judge means I'm accusing this person of something, even though that doesn't necessarily mean that. Could you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, and like I said, I play competitive bridge, and so now I know if something's out of sorts, I will call the director over just to clarify what's going on. And I have, and that happens all the time. And I know when you're at the very beginning, you hate getting the director called on you because you think you're in trouble and everything. But it's part of the game, right? So, if you have a question about an interaction, you have a question, the judges, especially in the Masters division, they're busy, but they're not too busy to answer questions. We don't get a lot of calls all the time, so a lot of the judges are just table judging to make sure, trying to make sure people don't cheat. But they really want to actually have some more interaction with players. I mean, that's why they're there, right? They want to have the interaction. They want to be able to help. So it's really is important to, especially if it's against somebody who is pretty good or pretty fast, they might say things that are not quite true or misleading or such. And so you want to call a judge at that point. A good example would be, oh gosh, there's not too sure there's a good example, but I remember last year where someone they did a zig zagoon and then they did some other things and they thought the guy thought it was knocked out, and so the guy says knockout and started taking the prize cards. The guy just sat there, waited till the guy took the prize cards, and then says, "Oh, you're one short. Oh, you already took prize cards. Oh, that's a double prize penalty." And so if you're a rookie, you can say, "Hey, wait a second. That's call a judge." And now the judge also tracks to see has that happened to that player before. And if it's happened to that player before, I'll disqualify that player who did that because that player just sat there and waited, to have the guy take two prize penalty, two cards to bait him because he knew it wasn't knocked out.
Yeah. And there actually is I remember seeing a couple updates to like the judging handbook just a few days ago, and I pulled it open here. We'll post tweeted on I was gonna say we'll posted it. We'll post tweeted it
Yeah,
on Twitter. There's no
we'll post it on
there's no
Twitter.
there's no
Yeah,
easy
yeah,
way
yeah.
to say it. But he the quote is for minor gameplay errors. It says contributing to an opponent's gameplay error by failing to keep track of game actions and mechanics.
Yes,
So if you continually get caught essentially letting your opponent misplay, not misplay, but let your opponent, you know, get themselves in trouble, you might get in trouble as well.
exactly. And that's one of the ways that cheaters can cheat is just letting uh, and that's why people want to be able to give a double game loss because they want to prohibit the other person from getting away from knowing the other person broke in game state, or oh, I didn't see him take prize cards, I'm going to wait till it's the game state's broken so I'm able to get a game win. If you continually to do that, and there's a trend, we're going to catch that, and then we're going to say, hey, you're just continuing, this is very suspicious, this isn't sportsmanlike, and you're going to be on the verge of getting disqualified.
I see. And that's why there is kind of that difference in philosophy between should this thing be a double prize penalty or a game loss or something minor? Because there are pros and cons to each perspective.
That's the toughest call part. You don't want cheaters to cheat, but you don't want to penalize people who don't cheat. And my belief is there's more people who don't cheat and get penalized thinking they were cheaters than than not. And the problem is in the rules, there's nothing that says, hey, this is the first time you've done this. You should have been responsible for breaking game state. I'm going to give you not a warning, not a double prize penalty. I'm going to give you a game loss. And there's nothing in the rules about that. The problem is that people or judges look at the ability to escalate rulings as, well, I think this should be escalated because he should have caught it and he was baited. He was N baited. He was, remember the good old N? You know what this card does? Oh, yeah, N. Shove your hand in the back. Oh, I didn't play it. Stuff like that. It's, they don't want to have people N bait you. They don't want to play Toad and then knowingly play an item so they get an unfair advantage. They're looking for those cheaters. And so it's more of a situation where they're just trying to prohibit you for doing it. So some judges out there will automatically escalate it because of some certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time, but just under certain situations.
I see. Interesting.
It's usually when the person would get a game loss because I didn't watch the game state. And Spice with Toad is one of them, and maybe taking not seeing the guy take prize cards would be one of them. Maybe playing a supporter twice and shuffling cards in the hand. Playing a boss and then playing a judge and shuffling his cards in his hand. Things like that. That's one of the challenges I think judges have is, when do you look for cheaters? When do you, don't penalize a non-cheater for something that shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, the big kind of thread seems to be the intention behind a lot of these things.
Right.
Were you just not paying attention, or did you mean for your opponent to make that mistake, or did you accidentally play because with the double supporter it happens. We've seen it happen a few times with Mew, where someone plays Silene, gets double tails. You might as well have not played a supporter that turn, and then they play Judge, right? Like, did they intend to do that? Did they not intend to do that? It's very hard to tell.
Right. Oh yeah, right. I mean, I played enough that I've double supported and been able to catch it. I said double, I do, I'll play this, and the guy says, "Oh, wait a sec, you played this one, did I? Oh my gosh, you're right about that." So I know because I played that was not my intention, and so I don't want to have a game loss because that was not my intention. So you talk about what's one of the most difficult rulings out there. It's really trying to understand the intentions of the player and trying to catch the cheaters without trying to harm the players who are just trying to play the game.
Mm-hmm. And that's where it kind of goes back to not being afraid to call a judge, because if it happens once or twice, you can infer that it might have been unintentional, but if the judges might see that there's a history of this throughout the tournament, but people need to be calling judges for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And another one is with these newer players. One of the players may think that this is the way it works because that's how it works on PTGO, and it's not. And so, oh, I thought it worked that way. Well, I'm new at it, so I'll believe you. No, just call a judge. They'll clarify it.
Of course.
It's only going to take a minute. It's not a big deal. If you disagree on how it works, just call a judge. Get clarification.
And that of the when I was asking some people in a few group chats this morning what questions to ask you, one of the everyone now more or less knows the answer to this, but I was being told I should ask you, can you use Forest Seal Stone under Path to the Peak? The answer is yes, you can.
You know why? Because it's not on the Pokemon, it's the card that's using it, right?
Yes, it was. I remember when the ruling first came out from Japan, and everyone was very confused, and all the Mew players were very, very happy.
yeah, you can use it under that, but the B star doesn't use it. It's the card, so.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to players who might be interested in getting involved with judging, especially when hopefully cups come back and there's more opportunities to be involved outside of regionals and just local events, what is the main selling point to become a judge, become a professor? If someone was coming to you and saying, "Should I take the professor test, get involved with all of this?" What would you tell them?
There's so many. We've been talking all about TCG too, and there's so much more. VGC is so big. My daughter is now a judge in VGC, and she is very involved in that. So if a lot of players who've been in TCG and been playing for 2 or 3 or 4 years, sometimes they want to be able to move over and be a judge. That might be their forte. Try to get involved on the local level. Try to, if there's a store, go ask. If there's cups, see you can assist in the cups, and just try to get a little bit of experience in judging at that aspect and try to learn a lot. And then I know regionals are always looking for volunteers, always looking for help. I don't think, because we've exploded so much, I think the player base has expanded faster than the judge base. And so the regionals are, it's always been, we don't usually turn away judges. The only time we turn away judges is that if you have like zero experience, or you don't have, it just doesn't have a good match for timing or anything. But I think that's the biggest thing, is you learn so much at a regional. It's unbelievable how much you learn. So if you can just get a little bit of experience at a cup or a challenge or a tournament, even if you just volunteer 2 or 3 times and then go to a local regional, you'll just gain so much more experience at that point.
And continuing on that line of questioning, other than the very nice white lab coats, what are some of the perks and advantages of becoming a judge?
You only get those if you judge worlds, actually.
Really? I did not know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You don't get. I got mine from judging worlds. Uh, the judges are a great group of people. We go out after a regional. We go out sing karaoke. It's just a close knit group. We usually get. If they serve us lunch at regionals. We get paid a stipend. Usually we get boxes. I mean, you go play at Worlds, you walk away with 7 boxes. If you are lucky enough to get to Worlds, some of the swag is wonderful. The staff cards are worth a lot. Just being able to help out and getting some of the swag is probably the biggest benefits from monetarily wise from that. We have other activities. I love Professor Cups. Absolutely. And you probably love Professor Cups too, because it's not the normal thing. It's GLC, kind of,
Yeah, I'm familiar. It's like alternate formats every year, essentially.
yeah, it's different. I remember one time, oh, it was great. Uh, I played Will Post, and he had a fantastic deck, and I had a really good deck too. And we got to 4th round, we were like 3-1, right? And so we were going to hopefully make top cut. So we're going to start the battle, and then all of a sudden it says, "Okay, switch decks." And so I had to play Will's deck, and he had to play my deck.
Oh, that was the rules for the
That
tournament.
was a rule. So we had to switch decks, and his deck was more straightforward than my deck. So I was able to understand it faster than how he could understand my deck. And so I beat him with his deck.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. You know, I remember playing with Vince, who's the TO for an Knoxville that's occurring this weekend. Went down in Atlanta one time, and one of the rules was, all right, take your hand and put it in the discard, and take your discard and put it in your hand. Well, what happened was that rule, the guy said like 3 minutes into it, the guy had no discard pile. He had like 7 cards at his head. So it's like, put it in there, and he couldn't play the game.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah, it was
funny.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the rewards for those are pretty good. I think a friend of mine won. I think he got maybe top two at the one of the Professor Cups, like maybe like 10 years ago. But he got like a nice backpack, a lot of swag. Like it's pretty nice rewards to be involved in that.
Yeah, yeah, it really. I have a really nice backpack for making top eight. I made top eight a couple times. It's just fun to play. It's the best part about. I mean, other than the great people that I'm playing with, it's the just the time trying to think of a unique deck that nobody else has.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. There was this one guy that in Denver that he was 6-0. He went completely undefeated. And I played him. He was like number one seed. I barely scraped in, and my deck destroyed his deck. There's no way for him to win. And it's like he was so upset about that. I can't beat this. I know it's it was just a great call, and it's just so much fun.
And I did get asked one other question that was brought up to me regarding your experience as a player, and it was actually in reference to the Denver Regional. Was you making day two without really knowing what Unknown Hand did?
Oh
Could you
gosh, that
tell
was
us a
so
bit about
embarrassing.
that?
So I'm playing with Evan, right? And that was his deck. He created the deck. He loves stall decks and everything. So I'm the good pokey dad, and I'm playing every deck against it. And I says, I like this deck, and I needed to get a couple cards, and I got a couple cards. And so I go into the event. I never played the deck before. And so the very first round, I thought my only win condition was playing unknown hand. I had to get 35 cards in my, and so I go and I have 34 cards, 33 cards, and I draw my last card, and I have 34 cards. I'm completely decked out. I'm going to lose. I scoop and realize, oh, actually, I think I had like a judge in my hand. I could have completely put it in back in my hand. I totally spaced out, thinking my only win condition was playing an unknown hand,
Hmm.
and I think as the day progressed, I only used unknown hand once for my win condition the rest of the day. It was yeah. Whoever asked that question, shoot them, because I don't want to relive that memory.
It was Mo.
Oh no. Yeah, I think Mo was there. I think Mo was there. It was fun. It was fun to it's fun playing stall decks because he just destroys the other person's dream.
Oh yeah. Mo made it sound like you just did not know what Unknown did and made day two despite not knowing what it did.
Oh, I know what it did. I just thought that was my main win condition.
Gotcha.
I didn't realize that my main win condition was, you know, Steven's resolve passed.
It's not always a race to 35 cards.
No, I knew what that was.
Okay, okay. As we start wrapping up, is there any last things you'd like to let our listeners know, Greg? Where can they find you? How can they reach out to you? Where can they see you? What events will you be at? And any final words?
Yeah, I'll be at Fort Wayne. I haven't been at as many regionals this year. The kids are getting older and more independent. They're able to travel themselves. Alyssa, I just that's my daughter. Shout out, she's like been to almost every single regional so far. Uh, Judging Go and VGC. She's going out to Vancouver, then flying to Amsterdam for the next weekend for a special event. She's just fantastic. So I wanted to shout out her at least. Um, but yeah, I'll be there. I'll be judging Milwaukee. Hopefully, I'll be selected for that. I in the Chicagoland area, I'm nerd rage all the time. Chicagoland Pokemon. I'm one of the administrators there. They can always just reach out to me at that point, have any questions. If there's judges, I've had a lot of just PM me and ask me questions. So, and then one of the things I want to let everybody know is that if you really think a ruling is wrong, question them. I mean, ask for the head judge. There is, I mean, I've been overruled before when I've been a floor judge. And there are some judges, I think I talked to you earlier, you might be a first time playing in a regional. The judge might just not know. I had an experience last year where the guy asked, I'm late. How's this work? And the guy came and said, oh, well, if it goes to 2 games, it's a tie. And I knew that was wrong. And so I said, I don't think that's correct. Can you verify that? And I went back to the, mentor came back. Yeah, that's what it says. I says, please show that to me in the rule book. And that was the biggest thing. Just show it to me in the rule book where that is. And finally, when they showed it to me in the rule book, oh, okay, I didn't know that was the rule. And so that's the biggest thing. If you really know that you're correct, or you're really questioning it, a lot of times judges can be wrong. Ask them to show it to you in the rule book. Ask them to show it to you on the compendium. Go have a head judge, clarify that. That's not a problem. We're human. We're not infallible. I've made many mistakes myself. I know other judges that are, top-notch judges makes mistakes. So it is what it is.
Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing your evening with me and uh, enlightening us so much about judging. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't ramble on too much.
No, I think it was pretty good. It was very helpful. All right. So in that case, I hope you have a great weekend. Good luck at your bridge tournament. I
Thank you.
hope you win.
We're trying to qualify for national teams for this year, and if we win, we get a stipend, and it's actually the nationals are going to be held in Chicago this year. So
Oh, awesome.
last year I didn't do too well, and that was I could have gotten Providence, but this year I'm hopeful.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, best of luck. Thank you so much for talking with us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you to Greg for being so generous with his time. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you're interested in hearing more conversations like this one, consider giving the podcast a follow, review, or rating wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on social media, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at memcappodcast. Or if you want to see me post about my own TCG experiences, you can follow me on Twitter at RZGladys. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for listening.